application numbers were incorrect. They have now been corrected, and we are certain that they are in order. And the other thing was that at the end of that, you might notice that it did say that the meeting closed at an unspecified time. That again has been corrected to read the meeting closed at 7:24. So on the basis of that, members, are you happy that I sign those as a true and correct record, please?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thank you. For your pen, because I've only got a green pen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So those minutes are duly signed. And I've also handed the pen back to Christine. So, members, we now move on to the substantive part of this evening, which is the planning applications, item 4. And so to kick off, we're going to be addressing application 23-00-444/FUL. This is Blackbrook Hall, London Road. To take us through this application and the report, I'm going to call upon Mr. Tom Ansell, I beg your pardon, Tom Ansell, who is going to take us through this. It's quite an important one, this, and very much welcome your arrival at the planning committee. This is the first time I think you've spoken at this planning committee. Thank you. Okay, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Chair. This application concerns a Grade 2 listed residence known as Blackbrook Hall and its associated historic agricultural buildings. And these are arranged in an L-shaped forms to the east and southeast of the main dwelling. Creating an enclosed courtyard. This complex is located around 4 miles to the south of Lichfield City and it's accessible off the southbound carriageway of the A38. It is within open countryside and the West Midlands Greenbelt. There's a public footpath crossing the site, approximately where that pointer was. Blackbrook Hall itself is Grade 2 listed and the associated barns are curtilage listed. The northernmost parts of the site, including a small part of Blackbrook Hall, are covered by flood zones 2 and 3. So the area closest to the brook. The entire site is identified as suffering from critical drainage issues, such as a higher risk of surface water flooding. Blackbrook Hall and its associated buildings are located to the east of the A38 and the M6 toll. The complex has historically been known as Blackbrook Farm Antiques, retail premises wherein customers can visit and browse and purchase items that are displayed. The site therefore benefits from a large car park to the south of the building complex. And the barn itself has been internally subdivided into a number of units and sections. The site is fairly enclosed by trees found to the north of the building complex and south of the access and track into the site. To the northeast, not visible on the plan, are properties that lie to the south of Hungary Lane, which is on the approach to the settlement of Weeford. So I'll just show some photographs. So we're now looking within the site here. Towards the gap between the main farmhouse and the agricultural buildings, and a view outside. The arrows on the accompanying site plan should help. Closer up views of the gables of the 2 buildings. And now we're looking at the southern range of buildings, which is where most of the development is going to take place. The big building you can see there is one that's going to be demolished and replaced. So these photographs are from the car park of the frontage of the building, which will remain pretty much unchanged. And this is the access from the A38 into and away from kind of the car park. And that's the access with the A38 with a small on-ramp onto the A38 itself. The works proposed involve extensions to the buildings within the complex, a 2-story extension between the farmhouse and agricultural building, to the south, a replacement building to create a wedding breakfast reception room, and a new extension to create a kitchen. So 2-story replacement building and the kitchen. And extensions 1 and 2 will be finished in contemporary materials, timber cladding with sheet glazing panels and metal cladding on the roof. And extension 3's finish will align more closely with that of a simple ancillary agricultural shed, so no openings, timber cladding. A new balcony will be installed at first floor level, where the 2-story side extension is proposed, overlooking the courtyard, which will allow the cafe to have additional covers. The site's entrance will be demarcated by an arrangement of brick walls and gates with signage affixed to the walls, which will be illuminated. There is an associated listed building consent application with this, which has been dealt with under delegated powers. Having not attracted any objections on heritage grounds from the heritage officer, this associated application only covers the elements of the development that impact the fabric of the listed buildings. So there is an update concerning this application. It relates to correspondence received after publication of the report and the supplementary document. So concerns have been raised relating to the application's registration as a minor development. It has been contested that the application should have been registered as a major development. The council has received 2 drawings which establish the extent of floor space changing use and new floor space being added, some of which replaces an existing building. These have been added to the system and will become approved plans, and you can see snips of them on the screen now. The drawings show that the total floor space that will be in sui generis use as a wedding venue following the implementation of the development is about 720 square meters. This is less than what was originally listed on the this is more, I should say, than what was originally listed on the application form, but it is less than the 1,000 square meter threshold for major development. Notwithstanding this, officers propose to add the plans to the list of approved documents referred to by condition 2 of the permission, and then insert one further condition that will robustly control the floor space within the development that will become a sui generis wedding venue. The wording is suggested along the lines of something like this: the floor space that will become a wedding venue, sui generis, as part of this development, either through change of use of existing floor space, the replacement of existing floor space with new floor space, or the development of entirely new floor space, shall comply at all times with the areas shaded in green, pink, and blue, respectively, on drawings. And then I've just listed the drawing numbers for those 2 drawings, both received on the 1st of March 2024. There have been no other comments or points raised that require a verbal update to members of the committee. Councillors are requested to consider the principle of development, noting its location in open countryside, the design and visual impact of the development, including the impact on the green belt, the impact on residential amenity, noting noise, access and highway safety, impact on trees, ecology, flood risk. After careful consideration of all matters, officers conclude that the application should be supported for the reasons set out in the accompanying committee report, and subsequently recommend the granting of permission, subject to conditions listed in the same report. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Ansell, thank you very much indeed for taking us through that, and thank you for your comprehensive explanation of it as well. We have 2 speakers this evening for this application. The first one is S.G. Lander. If Mr. Lander, yes, sir. If you'd like to step forward, please, sir. The microphone there is awaiting your arrival, and you will have 5 minutes to speak. So we are very strict about the 5 minutes, and with 30 seconds still to go, Christine on my left will advise you that you have half a minute. At the end of the 5 minutes, you will be asked to cease speaking if you are still speaking at that point.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And your time will commence as soon as you begin. Thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm Steve Land, and I speak not only as a resident of Weeford, but also as Chair of Weeford Parish Council. In the report you have received regarding the wedding venue, the comments and concerns from the Parish Council have been trivialised and in fact ignored. However, everything we have raised has been written along with planning consultant. This application changed. It was originally submitted as an extension and building works as a minor application. Lichfield District Council have at some point allowed the addition of the wedding venue. A wedding venue is, and anyone can Google this, sui generis. It does not come under the existing class of office in retail. It stands alone. It is not ancillary to the retail outlets. In fact, the retail outlets are ancillary to the wedding venue, and it is advertised as such. The whole venue, all 1,175 square metres, comes under a change of use. This is a major application. The correct procedures have not been followed, and the documentation presented to the committee is either outdated, incorrect, or has been unfairly considered by the consultees as a result. It is not just our opinion, it is from a planning consultant, and to make absolutely sure of our position, we've also sought legal advice. They are in complete agreement and have both separately stated that if this is passed, judicial review should follow. The site lies in a flood zone that regularly floods. The proposal has been considered under the class less vulnerable. However, a wedding venue comes under the more vulnerable classification. It has not been properly considered. The flood risk assessment and drainage strategy does not even belong to this applicant. It was produced for the previous owner, Blackbrook Interiors, that had a couple of customers at a time, no kitchens and a couple of hundred guests, and not a couple of hundred guests flushing toilets. There is no transport statement, and the additional parking has not been included in the red lines on the application. The site with the additional parking included is well over 1 hectare, and so again a major application. To accept the proposal will not produce any extra traffic than the quiet antique centre is ludicrous. To the noise, and this is the crux of the proposal, we have had very adamant noise assessment author and applicant that 100 decibels is the noise they wish to make. 100 decibels, for comparison, is what music festivals and live bands produce. If you've been to a music event or a live band indoors, unable to hear the person next to you, this is the noise level. Little Astonbury is 5,500 metres away from Weeford Square, and it's not only heard at times, we can tell the songs that are being played. That's fine, it's once a year. This proposal is for at least, and I'll quote, twice a week. The nearest property to Blackbrook is not 5.5 metres away, it's 200 metres away. In fact, all the neighbouring properties are basically in the audience, and what is disgraceful, they haven't even been notified. Other wedding venues in the area have restrictions as to time and noise due to complaints and are already indoors. If you read the conditions of this report, this venue won't have any. So we have to assume they will follow what is stated in the application. Outdoor music at 100 decibels until 10 o'clock, live bands until 11 o'clock, and all the doors open until 11 o'clock. But I emphasise, but as they affirm, this is only if they are required to do so. They state a finish time of 1 o'clock. And so from 1 o'clock until probably 2 o'clock, you've also got people leaving, singing, cheering, shouting. That comes in at roughly about 80 decibels and cumulative louder. We ask you to think carefully about this. Think about the 200 metres from your own front door and at least twice a week. Think about the residents of Weeford that have been totally and rudely disregarded in this report. It will inevitably have a detrimental impact on those living near, with the creation of significant incongruent noise. It will fundamentally change Weeford. Thank you.
Mr. Lander, thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you. And you didn't need to be warned that you were about to run out of time either. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so there you are, members. You've heard the views there of an objector who is representing the views, I think, of a lot of the local residents. So I shall now call upon the applicant's agent. The applicant's agent this evening for this is Claire Preston. Good evening, Claire. You have 5 minutes, as you will be aware, having just listened to what I said. With 30 seconds still to elapse, you will be notified as such. Thank you. And we do strictly adhere to the 5 minutes. So your time starts once you commence. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. The application seeks consent for the erection of a single-storey rear extension, two-storey link extension and balcony to form cafe, restaurant and wedding venue with installation of access gates. The officer's report identifies all relevant material planning considerations and arrives at a recommendation for approval, which is welcomed. The proposal before you seeks to rationalise and expand on existing uses with the buildings. The applicant's recent renovation of the principal building, Blackbrook Hall, has been carried out sympathetically, and subject to approval, it is the applicant's intention to continue this approach with the remaining buildings. The proposals include elements such as replacement of the timber papered effect wall and replacement of the corrugated sheet extension, with materials more complementary and sympathetic to the appearance of the heritage asset. The proposals make a positive contribution to the preservation of the site and seek to protect the ongoing use of the heritage asset to ensure the buildings are beneficially used and can be enjoyed by future visitors to the site. The Council's heritage team have been heavily involved in the design of the proposals and have had no objection to the scheme. In terms of residential amenity, the applicant has submitted a noise impact assessment conducted by an independent third-party consultant. Subsequent queries arising from the Council's Environmental Health Officer and local residents have been addressed by the applicant's consultant. The Environmental Health Officer therefore has no objections subject to conditions, and the applicants have no objection to a condition to the approval notice imposing a noise strategy. The site benefits from an existing access point which leads to significant parking available on site. The Council's highway team are satisfied the proposed gates and walls to the site access will not impede on visibility. Therefore, there are no objections from a highway perspective. In terms of flood risk, the proposed buildings are within areas within the lowest risk of flooding. In summary, there are no outstanding material planning considerations. Therefore, the application is considered acceptable. Any harm to the heritage asset has been concluded as less than substantial and on the lower end of the scale. In terms of Greenbelt, the scheme complies with the requirements of respective policies. Any harm as a result of the development is outweighed by the economic benefits through employment, with the creation of 11 full-time equivalent jobs, tourism, bringing investment into the area through visitors into Lichfield, and environmental benefits through securing the long-term maintenance and upkeep of the heritage asset. We would therefore encourage members to approve the scheme in line with Officer's recommendation. Thank you for your time.
Claire Preston, thank you very much for that. Again, you didn't need the full 5 minutes either. Members, there you are. You've heard then various perspectives. You've had the Council's perspective from the Senior Planning Officer, Tom Ansell. You've also heard the views of the objector representing the views of many of the local residents, and you've also had the applicant's agent's report as well. There's quite a lot to get your teeth into there, isn't there? And I've got a feeling that there will be quite a few of you wishing to contribute. The first one to signal, I think, is Councillor Salter. Councillor Salter, please.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. 2 points, if I may raise them. Unless I misheard, I think Mr. Lander in his presentation mentioned 100 decibel level for outdoor music. I don't think that's the case. I think that's the indoor level, isn't it? Not quite clear. Condition 16 just says limitation of volume of live amplified music to 100 dB. It doesn't actually state whether that is indoor or outdoor, although condition 17 gives a limitation of volume of external noise to 65 dB. So can I just sort of verify the situation in respect of where that volume is? That's my first point. Thank you.
Do you wish that to be answered now, do you? Yes,
Yes,
okay. So
yes,
we can address that one first of all. So Mr. Ansell, please, if you can come back on that. Just clarification of the noise levels, please.
Yeah, I can confirm interpretation of the conditions is correct. So the internal live amplified music associated with the development must not exceed 100 decibels, doesn't specify internal or external, and it could be tweaked to refer to internal specifically. Condition 17, it's clear that external noise must not exceed 65 decibels at 3 meters from the noise source. So external noise levels shouldn't exceed 65, and so 100 decibels outside is not permitted.
Okay, thank you for that. So yes, if that amendment can be made to make it clear. I don't know whether they will have a license for outdoor music anyway in that sense. And of course, any breach of conditions in respect of noise would come back to licensing and their ability to continue if it were so deemed. My other point, I was hoping that there might be a highways officer present. It was to do with their no objection on visibility displays for the entrance and exit of the site. I just wanted to confirm, and you may be able to do this for me, Chair, whether consideration had been given to the change in the nature of the traffic. As a retail outlet, it's during the day till perhaps 5:30 or 6, with traffic coming and going 2 or 3 cars at a time throughout the day. With a wedding venue, it would be a large number of vehicles within a sort of 10-minute window coming in and then leaving again late in the evening. And that is a very busy 838 road. It's a major trunk road. And I just wondered whether that consideration had been given during the highways investigation. Thank you.
Okay, I may well defer to Mr. Ansell in just a moment, but from my recollection of the report, County Highways had made reference to the fact that they realised that the profile of traffic will change, but they also pointed out that as a fairly busy retail site, the ingress and egress of vehicles to the site was well established. And I don't think that the fact that there would be a concentration of vehicles at certain times of the day was deemed to be particularly significant in terms of adding to the highway risk, if I can put it that way. That was their view, and I suppose really we have to accept that they are the experts in this. And as you will probably know, Councillor Salter, that when it comes to highways, unless the effect is deemed to be severe, there are very often very few avenues down which we can go in order to use highways information as a reason for refusal, if you understand the point I'm making. Yeah. So highways have addressed it, they've looked at it, they've done the modelling, and they seem to be content that this is an acceptable traffic profile. But I'm just going to hand over now to Mr. Ansell, if he can just add to that, perhaps. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have much to add to what you said, other than to maybe state that, yeah, so the access has been assessed even with the gate and brick walls as being acceptable in terms of visibility. And yeah, the kind of extant use of the site has been noted. And whilst obviously, yes, there's certainly the profile of traffic when it arrives, when it departs will change. There'll be intense times of arrival and times of departure. Essentially, one thing that we must afford weight to is the extent of which the existing site could be used. With a retail use more intensively, if it was split into more units, there could be more people coming and going more frequently. So I think that's come into play with the highways kind of considerations too. So I would concur with the kind of summary that Chair provided there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salter. Do we have any other views that you wish to express, please? Councillor Checkland, Vice Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Checkland.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. It was mentioned in relation to whether or not the venue was a major or a minor application. Perhaps legal advisor could give us some direction as to which area that falls in, if that's in his remit. And the other bit is in relation to the actual licensing of music and alcohol sales is not something for us through planning, I believe, and would be something that comes through a licensing application. And so entertainment outside after 8 o'clock, I think it falls under the license for a licensing decision rather than a planning decision. Am I correct in that?
I'm just going to hand over now to Harjit Gill, the legal officer. Thank you, Harjit.
Thank you, Chair. If I address the first point in regards to the major application significance, then the planning officer has quite adequately covered that. He's made an assessment color-coded on the plan, exactly the floor space that is going to be used, and that he's determined that it is below 1,000 square meters. So I don't really have anything to add to that, and that is a planning judgment rather than a legal matter. In regards to the aspect of noise, the noise considerations and noise assessment has been covered within the report. Again, that is a planning consideration, and licensing matters are really are licensing matters and not to be factored in regards to the planning application.
Thank you very much there to Harjit Gill. If I can just come back to the planning officer, senior planning officer, Tom Ansell, please. We've talked about the implications of noise and the very fact that it does say in the report that 3 meters from the noise source should not exceed 65 decibels. I think that sounds eminently reasonable to certainly some of us, if not, I can't say all of us, but I think some of us. I'm just wondering how, in practical terms, that would work, because is it possible that the applicant might think that that was either unreasonable or unworkable? Because 65 decibels is quite low. I'm not defending the right of the noise to rise above that, but I'm just saying that I think, in practical terms, that is quite a low threshold. And I would imagine the applicant may well state that that is going to make it unworkable to have live music or recorded music played at reasonably high volume. If you can just come back to me on that. I suppose really we could do with an EHO here just to give us a little bit more background information on noise levels. But if you could address that, please. Thank you.
Certainly. With regards to the condition, first of all, it hasn't been objected to by the applicant, and this would be an opportunity for them. There have been opportunities for them to do so. The conditions have been presented to them. In the future, if they cannot make it work, if it's an impractical level to work towards, if it cannot be made to work whilst running a viable wedding venue, having an event there, then they have the option of applying to, well, first of all, they have the option of appealing against the condition, where they can challenge its imposition in the first instance, and they'd have to present a case to the inspector to argue why the condition is unreasonable, unenforceable, doesn't pass the test set out in the National Planning Policy Framework. Alternatively, they could, at a later stage, once they've explored options to limit noise externally and have realised that it's not going to be achievable or practical to the business, they could apply to the council, setting out essentially why that level can be increased, i.e. it will not cause harm, and here's the evidence for it not causing harm, or it might be that they can argue other situations, put in place other mitigation that could help the situation too. It would result in further correspondence between their acousticians and our acoustician, our environmental health officer. So those avenues would happen. It wouldn't, granting this permission with this condition wouldn't result in an unimplementable scheme. It would be implementable up to a point, and then if there needs to be changes, there are mechanisms to allow that change.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much indeed. I think that answers my question admirably. Thank you. I know we have 2 members wishing to speak now. We have 3 members. Okay. So first of all is Councillor Mears, please.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Chair. On listening to the different speakers, I've got a couple of points that I wanted to raise. With the drive visibility, is it a single track driveway? And if it is, are there going to be passing places on there? Is it wide enough for 2 cars?
It's wide enough for 2 cars to pass.
Yeah. And with the entrance and exit, do you have any photos of what it is currently? Because I think it's post and rail at the moment.
You can see some of the treatment, but you're right, it's post and rail around the kind of the bell mouth opening up to this point, and there's can't see if there's a propped open gate or whether it was just a fence with a space. There's no gate proposed across this section anyway, but yeah, it's post and rail around.
I've got no problem with there being gates on the entrance, because I can understand the reasons for that, but I do feel that the post and rail is a better option than a brick wall, because as cars pull into the entrance, they can see the lights of cars coming towards them and cars in front of them if there's a big volume of traffic going both ways. I think the openness on that point there is going to be key to keeping it safe if you do have people, because there's not room for many cars to pull in if they're all arriving in a short amount of time. So I think being able to see what cars are approaching or in front of you is going to enable the flow of traffic more efficiently to avoid any accidents occurring on the junction. Because if any accidents do occur there, they're going to be critical and they're going to stop more of the flow of traffic into Lichfield. I have another question regarding the size of the actual weddings. Do you have any estimates of how many guests they believe will be invited to the weddings? What parameters they're working to?
I do not have that information immediately before me, no. I wouldn't know. The capacity of the main hall would suggest that there isn't, and the wedding breakfast venue would suggest that it's not going to be substantial numbers, but I couldn't put a number to you right now, unfortunately.
Because what I would like to see is a parking schedule, how they plan to park all the cars, where they're going to park them, and how they're going to move them around the site, the sweeps for the traffic and what have you. Because the picture that you showed, the frontage of the building, it did look like there was only parking for one bank of cars.
So there's more parking available. There's about 3 banks, at least 2, possibly 3 banks available. But I take your point about having an actual laid out drawing showing the number of spaces achievable and the dimensions.
Yeah, because I think we need to know that for capacities of the venue and then the amount of cars, which will indicate the traffic, because weddings come in 2 parts, don't they? There's the sit down part of it, and then there's the evening event afterwards. So they may put the statistics up there for the sit down part, but actually you could potentially double a wedding with the evening guests that are invited afterwards. So I'd want to know those figures before we agree on what's been laid out here and offered. I've got another query regarding the noise. Having seen another wedding venue very similar to this being developed, the noise is absolutely critical. Control of the noise is almost the be all and end all of the success of it, taking into account the local residents. Almost that has to be almost the primary concern if this business is going to get off the ground and exist successfully in the vicinity of everyone else who's already lived there for years. I do feel that the windows need to stay shut, that there needs to be a whole ventilation scheme provided, and that has to have noise mitigation inside the ventilation. I haven't seen any evidence of that. And if this is going to become an established wedding venue and doing 2 weddings a week, then I think that's critical. I really think that needs to be included in the paperwork.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Mears. Mr. Ansell, do you wish to come back? And I know you've answered some of those questions as we've gone through. Are there any points that you'd like to make in response to the questions and points raised there by Councillor Mears? But I also know that Artemis Christofi wishes to come in first. So I think what I'm going to do is ask Artemis to speak first, and then if you wish to come back, you can. Artemis Christofi, please. Of course you may.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, given the sort of points that you've raised, if that's the general feeling of members this evening, that they do wish to see that additional information, then I would suggest that we defer the application so that we can review that and then bring it back when we have that information to hand going forward. So I'm just sort of putting that out there as a suggestion and a way forward if you didn't feel confident in making a decision this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That's Artemis Christofi there, the senior planner here at Lichfield. So there is a suggestion which I think probably went along with the views that you were expressing there, Councillor Mears. Mr. Ansell, if you wish to come back and answer any of the points that were raised there, and Councillor Mears did raise quite a few points as well. Thank you.
Yeah, just to touch on the access comments first on the boundary treatments and the suitability of walls versus post rail fences. I'd agree. And visibility, I think the point is fair in terms of having a post rail fence allows for visibility of cars coming in and out. And when you've got more cars coming in and out, that's certainly a consideration. Part of the appraisal I undertook on the visual impact on the gates walls, on the walls, I should say, didn't touch upon the highway safety element, but I touched upon this was on the Greenbelt. It was on what they can do under permitted development. So permitted development does allow the erection of walls and things under up to 2 meters in height without any planning permission being required Establishing where they can do that in this instance is a little bit different, but quite a lot of what they have proposed at the front, if reduced in height, could potentially be permitted development. So that that's one of the reasons why a firmer response on those entrance boundary treatments hasn't been taken. On the parking, again, it's something we could look to condition. Parking layouts are commonly conditioned in terms of getting a certain number of spaces, having the EV charging spaces and marked out disabled bays. We could condition not just it could form part of a landscaping plan, or it could be its own condition that requires the provision of a plan showing all the spaces laid out and the sweat paths and everything like you said. And with regards to the noise, I agree on its criticality with this sort of event, with this sort of venue. And condition 10 has it endeavoured to use the environmental health officer's bullet points in their when they confirmed they had no objection subject to conditions. The conditions were written using those as a framework, and it's certainly possible to look at whether further detail, further requirements can be put in there to make sure that they suggested, like internal measurements, put additional glazing, or I don't know what could be suitable, but we can certainly explore those options as conditions as well. At least I'd be comfortable using conditions.
Mr. Ansell, thank you very much indeed. I now have 3 other councillors wishing to speak. The first of whom is Councillor Salter, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I would support the suggestion of deferral, to be quite honest, that some very valid points have been raised by Councillor Mears. I just wanted to comment on the sound, the 3 metre from the noise source. I think that's a little bit sort of misleading. I think the sound source would be the loudspeaker, which is inside the building. 3 metres from that, you're still inside the building. So I think clarification needs to be made that the measurement would be made 3 metres outside the building, rather than just 3 metres from the noise source. And as you rightly say, Chair, 65 dB is not all that loud. Considering the background noise and the traffic probably exceeds that. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Salter, do I take that then that was a formal proposal for deferment?
Yes, I'm happy to propose.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I now move on to the next person to request to speak, and that's Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. Most of my concerns have been addressed by Councillor Serena Mears here, so she's taken over my stand there. I've got one question that's left here. There's nothing mentioned about any wedding outside. That often happens at these kind of venues, and if that's the case, there's nothing mentioned about any noise outside to control that. I'd like to make a proposal here that we defer this application as it's been recommended or proposed by our officer, and other conditions are attached to it. We need to see more information in this application, and more conditions attached to it in addition to the 19 that we've already got.
Councillor Cross, thank you. So you've formally seconded this proposal for deferment, haven't you?
Yes.
Yes. I know that Councillor Anketel wishes to speak, but at this stage, unless there's got anything substantive, I'm going to go to the vote. Is that acceptable to you, Councillor Anketel? Okay, thank you.
I was surprised that there was no mention of the number of parking spaces available, but there seems to be plenty of spaces on either side of the very long drive. But I would suggest that the parking places be marked out with the right-hand side. Looking at the diagram, it looks as if it could take 2 banks of cars, but there would need to be a suitable driveway in between them so that people wouldn't just get crammed in. So I think parking spaces should be marked with easy movement in and out available as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those points, Councillor Anketel, which have been noted. Members, we have a proposal for deferment by Councillor Salter, and that has been seconded formally by Councillor Cross. We need to have the reasons for deferment, and I'm going to give those to you now. First of all, the parking layout and the number of car parking spaces, including a parking management plan, perhaps needs to be established. Secondly, details of the total number of patrons and guests at the venue during the daytime, and has been pointed out by Councillor Mears, evening events often exceed those in the daytime. Thirdly, details of the internal ventilation to be submitted and considered. And also, I think there are certain aspects of the noise implications which need to be addressed and established and confirmed as well. So on that basis, if you're happy to take a vote on that for deferment, as I say, it has been proposed by Councillor Salter, it's been seconded by Councillor Cross. Could I please have a show of hands, those of you wish to defer this application tonight? Thank you. Okay, that's, and do we have any against? Do we have any abstentions? One abstention. Thank you very much indeed. Members, thank you very much for your comments, your deliberations there. I'd also like to thank Tom Ansell as well, the Senior Planning Officer. This has been quite a demanding application to process. We shall be seeing it again, of course, when it comes back to this planning committee. But I apologise to those who've attended tonight, expecting us to have reached a conclusion on this, which we haven't. This is very much a holding position, and it will have to come back to planning committee at a future date. Thank you very much indeed. So that application has been officially deferred by the planning committee tonight. Thank you. So we'll move on to the next application in just a moment. I'm just going to allow the members of the public who've come along specifically to witness the first application, just give them time to leave, and then we shall recommence in just a moment. So members, okay, we now move on to the second application on your list this evening. This is 60 Upper Way, Upper Longdon. And to take us through this, it is James Hyde. James Hyde will be with us in just a second. And I had made a note of the planning application number, which actually it's normally, I think, on there, and it isn't on there tonight. So that's it's on the screen. Thank you. I was going to say I should have gone to that well-known high street opticians, but I'm not even going to mention the name. James, thank you very much. This is application 23/01287/FUHC. Even I can read that. James, if you'd like to take us through this application, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. So this application is for 60 Upper Way. So the application relates to a detached dwelling located on the northern side of Upper Way, Upper Longdon, as seen outlined on red, in red on the screen. The property currently consists of a mixture of materials, which include red brick, grey render, and white UPVC cladding. The property falls within an area of outstanding natural beauty, and it should be noted that to the rear of the site sits the West Midlands Greenbelt. However, the site doesn't sit inside the Greenbelt. So this is an aerial image of the site outlined in red. The property sits in a residential area of Upper Longdon. The dwellings along Upper Way vary in design, scale, and with the surrounding properties benefiting from a degree of personalisation and extensions to the front. These are some photos from the site. So photo 1 shows the view of the property. This one highlighted there. Photograph 2 shows the property in relation to 62 Upper Way, which is this one with some work that's been done to the front. I think it should be noted that the parish didn't comment on this application, whereas they've commented on this application. So I mean, the parish didn't comment on 62 Upper Way, they've commented on 60 Upper Way. Application, there was an application for 62 Upper Way here highlighted, but the parish declined to comment on that application when it was submitted. However, they've commented on this application for 60 Upper Way, and that's the reason the application's been called to committee tonight. And obviously the designs vary massively between the two properties. This photograph 3 shows 62 Upper Way and the relation to the property itself here, 60, and then photograph 4 shows 58 Upper Way in relation to 60 Upper Way. These are the existing ground and first floor plans. So this is the property as it sits now. And these are the existing elevations. So these are the proposed drawings now. So the proposed drawing to the top left is the ground floor plan. This shows the single story front porch and how it projects out and how it would project out 2.15 meters, and it would have a width of 4.65 meters. So it's this piece here. The single story front extension would benefit from a mono pitch roof that would merge into the existing roof slope, and the proposed eaves of that roof would be 2.35. I'll show you on the next slide. The proposed first floor plan is shown here, and this shows the extension of the dormer to the front, which would project out from the roof plane by 2 meters, and they'd have an overall width of 9 meters. So these are the proposed elevations. All windows to the front are to be changed to grey. The dormer would have dark grey in colour, and the roof tiles would be grey as well. Off-white render would be seen to the front elevation down here. However, we've recommended that samples of all materials should be submitted prior to the works commencing. And finally, these are the existing and the proposed elevation, the front elevations for comparison. And that concludes the presentation. Thanks, Chair.
James Hyde, thank you very much for that. It's quite an interesting one because the changes to the property obviously have been deemed to be of consequence for the parish council. Members, it's for you to decide how you see this. Do we have any comments at all? I know that the point that Councillor Cross made when he asked the question, I think alluded to the fact that you were wondering how this sits with the adjacent building, where obviously significant changes have been made to number 62, but those changes did not elicit any response from the parish council at the time. Am I right in interpreting your comment in that way?
Absolutely spot on, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, any comments, questions? Oh, we've got quite a few actually. I suddenly looked to my right and saw a sea of hands. No, I'm afraid you're not allowed to speak. It's not registered. It hasn't been registered. Okay.
I mean, a lot of what I'm about to say is actually in James's report anyway.
Okay.
You got the response there?
Can we just have a quick look at your emailed response, please?
It's down to the chair, so.
Sorry,
I mean, I'm sort of going away from protocol here because we wouldn't normally engage with members of the public in this way. But of course, if you have no, I understand that, and that is why I'm making an exception on this occasion. Okay, so I do apologise. Just a slight lull in proceedings whilst we establish the situation.
It's your discretion, Chair.
Okay. Right, so I'm just going to have a quick look at the email. Christine, if I could have a quick look at the email, please, that is subject to this slight discrepancy. Thank you. Well, it seems a strange. It seems one of those anomalies where you appear to have sent us an email, but we don't appear to have received it. So on this occasion, I think it's only fair that we allow you to speak. So, Mr. Shardlow, with my Mrs. Shardlow, sorry, I beg your pardon. It's just that the email was in the name of Ian Shardlow. You have 5 minutes, and apologies for the slight error there. It's one of those things that can happen from time to time. But I hope that by granting you permission to speak, you will consider this to be a reasonable conclusion to the process. Yeah. Are you here as applicant or objector or?
Applicant.
You're applicant. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Mrs. Shardlow, this is exceptional, by the way. It's in my experience, I don't think I've ever known this happen before. So I'm hoping and I'm stating that this should not set a precedent. Mrs. Shardlow, you have 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. It probably won't be needed because I wasn't actually going to bother speaking, having read the report from Mr. Hyde. And if you've already as well, it probably covers most of the points, but there's a couple that are missing from it. So I will do what I was going to do. We're aware the parish council had made adverse comments on the plans. So this is the reason for the design we chose. The house still has its original flat roof dormers, and we have had installed solar panels above them. These and the battery we have supply and export electricity and reduce our bills and CO2 levels. Therefore, we cannot have pitched roofs on the dormers as were suggested by the parish council. The reason for extending the dormer across the middle of the roof and making it one long dormer is that we are having an air source heat pump fitted during the work and we require to have a hot water tank fitted. We have no other space to put it as we do not have an airing cupboard, and the best place for that would be in the centre front of the property, as that will then be above the kitchen and a shower room downstairs and between the bathroom and the ensuite at the front. It would also allow extra space for an airing cupboard and the bedroom ensuite. We have, we believe, chosen a modern but unobtrusive design for the new extended dormer that will blend into the roof and echo details on neighbouring properties, as in we will choose cedar for across the front of the dormer to match the new frontage next door. And the roof will be the same as theirs in slate grey. Part of the charm of Upper Way is that all the properties are different, and we feel our small alteration doesn't distract from that, especially considering the total changes made to the house next door. And I would also say they haven't yet fulfilled all their planning conditions. There are no bird and bat boxes, etc.
Work in progress.
Right, and that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you speaking, and once again, apologies that there's been a slight problem somewhere, which I hope has now been fully resolved to the satisfaction of everyone. Thank you. Right, so I know there's quite a few people wish to speak here, so I'm going to go with Councillor Rushton first, and then I think it's Councillor Galvin.
Yes.
And Councillor Evans, Councillor, anybody else that I've missed? So I've got Rushton, Galvin, Evans, Cross. Anybody I've missed? Okay, in that order then, please. Councillor Rushton, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be very quick and with a very simple answer. I think that that application actually makes it more in fitting with the surroundings, especially the applicant next door and the alterations that they've had. I can't see where the parish council is coming from. And with 8.2 from Cannock Chase AOMB, they have no objection either. And they're saying that it fits with the area of outstanding natural beauty. And therefore, I'm happy to propose when the time comes.
Thank you very much. Well, I could say the time has probably come. If you're willing to propose, then you may well do so now, if that's what you wish to do.
Yes, I'm happy to do that, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Councillor Rushton has formally proposed approval of this application. Councillor Galvin, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing the applicant to speak tonight. It has clarified some points for me. Again, as Councillor Rushton has said, you know, all the houses are different, so I think it will improve the area. And actually, I know this road because I may have frequented the pub opposite once or twice. And yeah, I really don't understand, so I'm happy to second Councillor Rushton with this one.
That's brilliant, thank you. So you can find your way to the Chetwynd Arms, I take it. Okay. And hopefully back again as well. Right, so I don't think we need to have any more speakers. Do you?
If they have anything, I mean, it has
Okay,
been seconded.
it's been seconded. If you'd like to make your points then, please, because you've been good enough to signal that you wish to speak. Councillor Evans, please.
I'm not going to repeat what everybody said because that is a total waste of time. I notice there are no neighbourhood responses. I think that is important, and I really can't see this is going to ruin the street scene, as has been said. So I'm quite happy to go along with the mover and the seconder.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. And then the fourth person wishing to speak, fourth member, is Councillor Cross. Councillor Cross, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to propose to approve subject to the conditions, so that's already been done. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay. So I think what's interesting as well is the applicants have stated that some of these changes which are necessary and are incorporated within the application are to accommodate some of the energy saving practices, which of course are being very, very actively encouraged by the government and by local authorities as well. So I'm sure that that has registered with some of you as being a very positive move. Members, this has been proposed for approval in line with the officer's recommendation by Councillor Rushton, and it has been seconded by Councillor Galvin. So all that remains is for me to ask for a show of hands, please, for those of you who wish to approve this application. And I believe that to be unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, members. And thank you very much to Mr. and Mrs. Shardley for attending. And my sincere apologies for the slight hiccup, which was fairly speedily resolved. And I hope that was to your satisfaction. Thank you all. Thank you. So, members, we now move on to the final application of the evening. This is 23/01408/LBC. Now, this is being reported to the Planning Committee because this particular site is within the jurisdiction of the District Council. And so that is why it's appearing here tonight. To take us through this application, I'm going to turn to my right, and I can see that Kerry Challoner is here, Senior Planning Officer. And so, Kerry, if you'd like to take us through this, please. As I say, it's a formality that this has to come to the Planning Committee, reasons which I've outlined. And well, no, it's a formality that has to come here as to align with protocol. If you'd like to take us through this application, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think you covered quite a lot of it there. The application, the next application, third on the agenda this evening, 23014008 LBC, relates to the wall at the back of our car park, the building that we're sat in right now. So this is the aerial location plan. You can see the council offices. My zap, well, it's trying to work. It's given up, I think. And the wall in question is the wall that sort of dissects the original car park to our temporary car park that was installed October last year, I think. In order to facilitate that, members, you did approve that temporary car park. We had to knock through the wall, the non-historic part of the wall, but it is nonetheless covered by a list by the historic listing. Unfortunately, this section of wall collapsed as part of them works. So this application just seeks to regularise that. The wall collapsed. It was a health and safety issue. The conservation team were involved in its rebuild. It's been rebuilt to what was supposed to be there, effectively. So you can't see it there. The plans just effectively show what the plans were going to show anyway. Again, this is to regularise the situation, to regularise that rebuilding of that really small section of work. It is before you this evening because it is an LDC application, and the recommendation is to approve. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Kerry Challoner. I bet you wish that all your presentations to Planning Committee were as straightforward and as brief as that one. But thank you very much. There's nothing more really to be said, is there, about that? It is quite straightforward. Councillor Cross, you wish to come in, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation, Kerry. There's been quite a lot of brickwork that's been taken out of there and is now missing. Has that been saved to be replaced when the temporary car park is complete? We're complete with it. Hopefully, it has.
Sorry, that is a question I cannot answer this evening, I'm afraid. The wall isn't a historic part of the wall. It is a sort of new addition. It's just the fact that it links up to a historic part of the wall at the back of the building that we're in now. That's the only reason it's listed.
But the piece that's been taken out, that must have been part of the historic wall.
No,
it wasn't. Okay.
It's only listed by association because it actually adjoins further along. It adjoins the historic wall.
I see. Okay. And do you know how long this is going to be temporary? How long is temporary?
It was approved for a period of 2 years.
Okay. And there's no drainage along by that entrance where the walls come out. Is it likely to be some drainage put in there because it's really causing a big mess for the officers and everybody else in public that's using that car park?
Yes, including myself, who's parked in that car park this evening.
Your muddy shoes when you.
Yeah, we've all got muddy shoes, and that is something that is being looked at by our enforcement team, I believe.
That's good. Okay, thank you for that.
So, Councillor Cross, are you happy with the answers you received to your questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to see the car, something done with the car park because it's an absolute. The other day it was just like a pond. You could not have gone in there. It was just flooded with water.
Okay.
And it's flowing right down past the barriers onto the road.
Okay.
So we have a contravention there.
So there are clearly some issues which need to be addressed.
Absolutely. I don't
Okay.
know who designed it, but whoever designed it, hopefully they've been moved on.
I have no idea about that, but thank you very much for your contribution. Councillor Salter, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to propose that this is approved as recommended. There's little else we can do, to be quite frank. But I do take on board Councillor Cross's points, Andrew, about the state of the ground.
Thank you very much, Councillor Salter. So that's a formal proposal for approval. Do we have a second? Sorry. Councillor Checkland is happy to second, I believe. Do you wish to say anything, Councillor?
That was it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other members wish to make a contribution before we go to the vote, please? Right. In that case, then, I'm going to ask for a show of hands. This application has been proposed for approval by Councillor Salter. and it has been seconded by the Planning Committee Vice Chairman, Councillor Checkland. So members, a show of hands, please. Thank you very much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 11, and that is everyone. That is unanimous, and I thank you very much indeed for that. The issues with the flooding, I'm sure, will be addressed, and I think everyone in this chamber at the moment and everyone who uses the car park would probably hope that that can be done sooner rather than later. Members, with that, and with the time now at nearly 7 minutes past 7, I'm going to bring this meeting to a close, this planning committee meeting here on March the 4th, 2024. I'd like to thank all the members present for your contributions. I'd like to thank all the officers as well who've attended, and to everyone who's been viewing online from the comfort of their homes. Thank you very much indeed for tuning in to us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you at the next planning committee meeting, which I believe is in 4 weeks' time. 8th, so that's 5 weeks' time, isn't it? Yeah, to accommodate Easter, of course. Thank you. So with that, everyone, I draw the meeting to a close at what is now 7.5 minutes past 7. Thank you.